Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Melanie Leighton, who's the CEO of Titan Minerals, a junior miner focused on discovering and developing tier 1 copper gold deposits in Ecuador's southern Andean copper gold belt. Melanie is a geologist with over 20 years experience in the resources sector, spanning many commodities, deposits and jurisdiction. She has held management and geological roles with Hotchkiss Limited, Harmony Gold, Hill 50 Gold and Northwest Resources, and in practical management experience within the areas of exploration, mining, resource development, stakeholder engagement and investor relations. Melanie's going to tell us a little bit more about Titan Minerals, Ecuador as a mining jurisdiction, and obviously a lot more. Melanie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Rob. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great. And as we always start these podcasts off, I just wanted you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career. Obviously, I just gave a quick snapshot of yourself. But I wonder if you can just, tell us a little bit about your career, how your career's developed, and maybe something that people may not know about yourself.
Tricky one, Rob. Yeah, look, geologist, been in the industry for about 20 odd years. Cut my teeth in Western Australian Andean gold. Started work at the Hill 50 gold mine under the rule of Peter Cook. He's quite well known in the mining industry and has, had a lot of success in his career through, mining projects and the like. So certainly learnt a lot, all aspects of kind of exploration, development and mining in my early day under the rule of Peter Cook, and certainly learnt how to sort of eke the value out of projects. Back then gold was sort of $200-300 an ounce. So very different prospect today. We're sitting at around $2,500 an ounce. Yeah, I guess learnt a lot about how to, eke the value out of projects and, the value of people also when you're exploring and developing projects as well. So yeah, I would say that's the main thing about myself and my career. I've certainly spent quite a bit of time working in both Australia and in Latin America, largely in the gold, copper, base metals industries.
Just talking about your career, and obviously mining has a bit of a brand image, obviously not a great image as most outside of our industry portray the image as. How did you get into the industry? And because it'd be good, because I always ask for people to share this episode for people within their industry, but people outside of our industry. How did you get into the industry? And I suppose what motivated you to then obviously not enter the industry, but then obviously continue and have a career within mining?
Yeah, very good question, Rob. I guess I entered the industry because I never wanted an office job, which ironically now a lot of my work is office based, but I really loved the idea of exploring adventures. I loved camping. I loved spending time out in the field. When I went to university, I started off doing a Bachelor of Science and chose geology as an elective unit actually, and really enjoyed it so much and really was excited about the idea of, exploring. And that's how I kind of fell into the industry. And in the industry along the way, I've had a lot of really key, I guess, mentors and a lot of opportunities provided to me. I've kind of always said yes to everything that's sort of come up. So that's, I guess, how I've progressed up the ranks from, a junior graduate geologist, initially working in exploration. And then I spent quite a bit of time working in open pits and underground, then progressed into resource development. I've had a lot of exposure to development and feasibility studies over the years as well. And then it obviously stepped up into more the corporate aspects of the business with a lot of investor relations, stakeholder relations, and then obviously now entered into my CEO role here at Titan Minerals. And largely that's, in this industry, it's quite a small industry, a lot to do with your network and your relationships. And, Peter Cook was the managing director back in the day in Hill 50 Gold. He's the one that approached me to become the CEO of Titan Minerals, him being our chairman. So yeah, it's kind of relationships and experience along the way. And yeah, for me, it's been a very rewarding career.
Yeah, great to hear. So why don't you just give us an overview of Titan Minerals?
Yeah, so Titan Minerals projects, as I think you said at the start, 4 large projects in the south of Ecuador. Ecuador, I guess the geology and the metallogenic belts are the same as what we see in sort of Chile, Peru, and Colombia to the north, but Ecuador is kind of like a gap in the middle there. It has the same potential, same geology. It's just far less mature in terms of a jurisdiction, in terms of exploration and mining. That's what really drew me to Titan Minerals. I was consulting for a few months prior to joining as the CEO. I had the opportunity to, review the projects, to meet the team, to understand the potential, and I was really excited by that. So that's why I stepped into the role. So yeah, largely we're exploring for copper and gold. Our Dynasty project is our most advanced asset. It hosts 3.1 million ounces of gold, 22 million ounces of silver, in a 9-kilometre long epithermal gold corridor. About half of that has effectively been explored and drilled, so more than half still remains to be tested. And so we believe the 3 million ounces at Dynasty could quite significantly grow to almost double that. So that's our main focus, is the Dynasty project. But then outside of that, our copper projects represent real exposure to meaningful scale copper, which is obviously what the world requires for the green revolution that we're all targeting in the future.
Obviously, you're the CEO of Titan. What have you found, I suppose, is the most challenging and most rewarding aspects of obviously managing a junior exploration company in Ecuador?
Actually, I haven't actually found too many challenges. Certainly, people might consider the language a challenge. I've been very fortunate that all of my geologists and staff over there are bilingual, if not multilingual, so they speak excellent English. And I guess indeed a lot of the geological terms that we use are Latin-based, so they're quite universal, I guess, across all languages. So language is not really a barrier for myself. Time, you might think 12-hour time difference between the two countries or continents is a lot. Effectively, we use that to our advantage, and we run as a 24-hour business. So I can be working my 12 hours here while they're sleeping, and then vice versa. And there's a lot of time for us to interface in the mornings and the evenings, where we often, meet and have our phone calls and meetings. Look, I think probably the only other challenge would be the long haul flight from Australia to Ecuador. It's about 40 hours, and at a minimum of 3 flights to get from one place to the other. But it's not really an obstacle in this day and age. And then outside of that, that they would be the challenges, I guess. And then outside of that, the rewards really are the people and the opportunity. Like I said, Ecuador is, in my mind, has got great potential and great opportunity. As a geologist, I find that really exciting. The people, the geologists and all of my staff in Ecuador, they're, highly technical, highly capable people. If I could bring, 20 of my geologists from Ecuador here to Australia, I think it would be a blessing for the Australian mining industry, because I think we're really lacking in that, technical capability, particularly for, coming through in terms of the next generations. Yeah, I found, working in Latin America to be really rewarding as a whole.
Yeah. And obviously, being a Western Australian geologist, what have you seen the main and from I suppose from a geologist perspective, what are the similarities or even differences between the geology in Western Australia and where you're working in Ecuador?
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely differences to the geology, and every project, every deposit really is different. So they're all unique. I guess what is fundamental to geology is collecting the foundation data sets, because that doesn't differ. The techniques that you use in terms of the geophysics, the geochemistry, the mapping, and your fact-based observations, so your quantitative and your qualitative data sets, collecting all of them from first principles, and then warehousing them in really a clean environment in terms of a good QA/QC database, and then bringing it into a 2D and 3D geological environment. That's what's fundamental really in geology. So the deposits, it doesn't really matter in terms of the location and the style. I think it's the way that you go about collecting that information, and that's the real value add. And I think that's what we do at Titan Minerals really very well.
What would you say the company's vision for its projects in Ecuador?
Yeah, look, like I said, Dynasty being our most advanced asset and, 3 million ounces of gold, we believe that, our strategy really is to be a multi-million ounce gold miner one day. We believe Dynasty is a standalone, gold project, currently 3 million ounces. we're looking to double that at least to 5 or 6 million ounces through our exploration efforts, and we're looking to launch into resource growth drilling in the coming months. So we've got about 10,000 metres of resource drilling planned between now and the end of the year, and then an additional 10 to 15,000 metres in the new year as well. So what we're looking to do is reach that sort of 4 to 5 million ounces of gold by mid next year through these resource drilling efforts, and then also have a scoping study completed as well. So I think, like I said, in the current gold environment, $2,500 an ounce, it's the right time for us to progress this project and be firing on all cylinders. I guess so that covers off on Dynasty and the gold projects. And then outside of that, we have a number of copper projects as well. The Linderos Copper Project, we've recently done a joint venture agreement with Hancock Prospecting. We finalised the term sheet that's been executed. We're just working through the final terms of the definitive agreement, and that should be executed within the next couple of weeks. So effectively, they can earn up to 80% of that project through funding all exploration and development studies to a decision to mine, and we're free carried through that. So I guess with Titan, our spend and our focus is the gold project. But with our copper projects, we're seeking sort of joint venture partners to explore and develop them, and us to retain a minority exposure in terms of a project level to those copper projects. So that's that's sort of two feathers in our cap, I guess.
And what exploration techniques are you deploying in Ecuador? And who are some of the key people in your team that obviously have a track record of discovery and development?
Yeah, look, I think the team is really important. So Pablo Morelli is our exploration manager. So he heads up our exploration team in country. He's got 20 odd years experience in porphyry copper and epithermal gold exploration. He's worked for Newmont, Barrick, some of the majors. He's just got a great feel for the geology and a great feel for the team over there. So he's been with us for several years now. And then also heading up our technical advisory role, we have a chief technical advisor, Mike Skeed. He's the former director of geoscience from Newmont's global projects, and a former director of global exploration for Goldcorp. So both of those companies have clearly been very successful with their, exploration and development of large-scale gold and copper projects as well. So really well-credentialed team on the ground. And then we have a number of Ecuadorian geologists who've been with us for several years, who we've been mentoring. But yeah, it's really about collecting those foundation data sets. It's about the observations. It's about boots on ground exploration. It's about the mapping. It's about collecting systematic soil geochemistry, regional aeromagnetics and radiometrics, and building it into, three-dimensional lithostructural models. So yeah, that's really what we've been doing at Dynasty and our other copper projects as well.
If you look at obviously the portfolio of projects, obviously with copper porphyry that you're targeting, obviously for a junior miner, it can be long and expensive prospect. How does Titan intend to navigate obviously your journey with all these projects in your portfolio?
Yeah, you're right. Look, we do have four large projects. So Dynasty is our focus, and that's where our spend is. But our copper projects, we've done a considerable amount of work in terms of developing and building those foundation data sets and our understanding. And what we've been able to do is attract a partner for our Linderos copper project, and the intent is also to attract partners for our other copper projects. So, we effectively won't be funding those projects. We'll be seeking joint venture partners to fund those projects and to add value through the exploration there. So that's our intent, really.
Ecuador currently has only 2 operating mines, and it seems to have a bad rap in the media with organised crime, obviously political corruption and blockages in the mining industry. What does Titan think or could do differently? And why should investors believe in Ecuador as a safe, obviously, jurisdiction for foreign investment, and obviously particularly in exploration and mining?
Yeah, you've raised a good point there, Rob. Ecuador traditionally and in the past has had a bad rap, and I know the media has probably sensationalized some of the incidents that have happened in country in the last 12 to 18 months. But the current government, President Noboa, was elected in late last year, and he got up and he presented at PDAC in March this year. For him, KPIs for his ministers, particularly environmental ministers, are approvals permits for progressing for both exploration and mining. So, the government do see mining as a big part of the future for Ecuador. They do see it as part of their strategy to revitalise the economy. Mining would represent, great employment for their people. As I said before, they're very technical. They're very well-educated people in Ecuador. There's just not a lot of opportunities for employment there. So the government is seeking industries to fill that employment gap, and mining represents that. Andean Gold have done a great job with the Fruta del Norte gold mine. They represent within the top 10 of the GDP for income for the Ecuadorian government. So the government understand what mining, can do for the economy there, and they're doing everything within their power to assist, and encourage foreign investment into exploration and mining. They're going so far as to enter into exploration and mining investment agreements and protection agreements with companies in country. So most recently, I think it's about $3.5 billion that the Ecuadorian government has guaranteed SolGold for their Cascabel project, to match that in terms of that foreign investment. So yeah, there's good support from the government there, going forward. And, we enjoy really good relationships, both at a local and federal, with the mining and environmental ministers and the like. So I think the government is very supportive going forward. And although Ecuador probably traditionally has had a bad rap, I think, that is set to change. And I think we see a number of the majors that are positioning in Ecuador and have been for several years now, Newmont, Barrick, Anglo American, First Quantum, BHP. So a number of the majors have got large land positions and projects within Ecuador. So I think there's a critical mass now that's building in terms of those majors and, royalty streaming groups that are all invested significantly in Ecuador in recent years. So there's a critical mass of investment there that I think that we as a junior are kind of benefiting from in terms of that, secure environment and government support.
Yeah. And lastly, what's the outlook for the company and your obviously flagship Dynasty Gold project, sort of over the short to medium term? And also if there's anything else that you would like to add and tell our audience.
Yeah, look, Dynasty, it's all about Dynasty for us. It's we've spent the last 8 months building up all of our foundation data sets in, the 4 to 5 kilometres of Dynasty that hadn't yet been explored or drilled. So now we've defined a lot of new exploration and resource extensional targets. So the idea is to launch into drilling them between now and the end of the year, get the 10,000 metres of, drilling under our belts. I think we'll see a steady flow of really good results that come from that. And then we'll also be working towards that resource update for Q1, Q2 next year, and then additional drilling beyond that. So it's about resource growth and some resource conversion and de-risking of the Dynasty project, and then getting some of those key feasibility work streams underway, because ultimately, there's work that needs to be done between now and the commencement of mining. And I think that we're in the right environment to get underway with all of that. So yes, certainly pushing ahead with the resource growth and getting some of those feasibility work streams underway.
Melanie, really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story, telling us about Titan Minerals and your plans moving forward, mining in Ecuador. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they want to follow your story and want to know more about the projects and the company, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels do you advertise on?
Well, we've got a few of the socials underway. I mean, obviously, we've got a web page, we've got LinkedIn, we've got Twitter, which is now X. I believe we have a Facebook page as well that's run from our Ecuadorian counterparts. So my team in Ecuador manage that. And actually, the Facebook page is great because you get some quite up-to-date content in terms of the social and exploration work programs that we have underway. So yeah, certainly, Rob, you'll probably provide my email address and the web address and the things at the end of this podcast. But yeah, I'd encourage anyone who's interested to reach out to me or check out any of our, social media presence. Sure.
Yeah, certainly all those details will be in the show notes so people can have easy access to all your content and information and news and updates. So wish you well for the remainder of the year. And perhaps you want to come on the podcast next year and give us an update once projects have moved forward. Happy for you to come on and share an update with us.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds great. Thanks, Rob. It's been a pleasure being here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please follow the podcast share this episode amongst people within our industry, but also outside of our industry. As Melanie told us how she got into the industry, we want more and more people to recognise what mining is in our daily lives, but also we want more and more people to enter our industry. It is a great industry, but we can only get more people into the industry by sharing stories like Melanie has just described. So appreciate your support, your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.